an expectation. God has a plan to see his expectation met. But a generation must come in alignment. And we say yes to Jesus. Ibarasia tabo mekababa kamande kaidatos. We withhold nothing, Jesus. You want a generation, we offer you one. Let the waitings come to an end. See a problematic woman. When you meet the real one, you can even feel she's problematic. When you come close, you now say, okay, this condition is what necessitated this. If you quench this condition, the person moves. Are you getting? Your eyes is weak. With your two eyes, you are still blind. God will need to establish for you an eye, and it is by that eye that he leads you. So if you have it in your book that I want to marry, I'll just go to youth meeting, and anybody I sit beside, any usher that first meets me, or any brother that leads worship on Sunday, is the one. That it starts well does not mean that it will end well. Now tonight I have said that, you see, enjoying yourselves is a secondary reality in marriage. Doing the work together is most important. So you can marry someone by mere looking at it who can cook. Maybe in sisters' unit they used to do one cooking thing like that. Esther's banquet. Next time they do, please attend. You will see people who can cook. You need to remember that man shall not live by bread alone. So if you choose by food, there's somebody in the house now. I still saw that person yesterday. I won't mention the person's name. If you saw that person 2 years ago, and you say, it's somebody like this that I want to marry. If you saw that person yesterday, you will be crying by now. How many of you know the person? You know? Okay. That somebody is very slim today, and you say, slim, I like. In 5 months, you can be wondering, are you feeding on Cerelac? Let the one who chose you choose for you. That's the life of a believer. No matter the noise that we are hearing around, you see, the foundations of God, that's why we lay those things as foundations. They stand sure. The one who chose you is the one who should make your choices. You don't know what is good for you. There are many things about your future life that you don't even know. I've shared this story before. It was a story that Archbishop Duncan Williams gave. Not Archbishop Duncan Williams of Action Worship Center in Ghana. He went to the UK and met a pastor. The pastor's complaint was, my wife is a witch. Says my wife is good from Sunday morning to Saturday evening. And on Saturday evening, while I'm preparing the sermon, she begins to disturb me. I don't even think it's fight, but she just disturbs me. And so I prepare badly. I deliver the sermon badly. So Dr. Williams said, God called you. The man acknowledged the call. Good. So it means that there's work registered. And you know, Baba has these ideas. He said, ask God to kill the one. That's a strange request. Ask God to kill her. Because he's disturbing the work. 2. I can't remember the second option. Do you remember the options? The other one was to change the work. What, you remember the third one? But there were three. There were three. Okay, the first one was God to kill her. 2 was to divorce her. That was the second option. The third one was change the work. It means alter destiny. Abandon your garden so that she can be covering something else. So 2 years later, he went back to UK and saw this pastor with a smile. It means God has done it. He said, my wife now, the same woman, yes, she's like an angel. What do you do? He said, I'm now a taxi driver. So what he decided to do was to alter the work. Now, there are many more options to work that in. Because the righteous is not helpless, even if the foundation is destroyed. But the man took the cheapest of the options. He forgot that you are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory, honor, and power. For thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure. He decided to sacrifice the pleasure of God on the altar of his own pleasure. Now he wears a smile. He will make money driving taxi. He will build a house, maybe in Ghana. But when he sees Jesus face to face, he will have failed. He will be an unprofitable servant. There are people in marriage who are like that. So the unmarried need to be cautious. I need to calibrate what I'm saying. Because in this day when people say be cautious, the cautions are outworkings of the soul. Checo, does he have a car? Does he look like somebody who will be able to buy a car in a lifetime? Checo, do they used to make it in their family? Because if they don't make it in their family, it will be trouble. Checo, does he used to give? Or he doesn't give? Checo, can you respect him? Have you heard those kind of words? They sound intelligent, but you see, it's the ministry of the soul. Don't marry a man that you cannot respect. I am not an environmental preacher. I am a messenger of Christ. And I can say in every place that it's not Jesus that originated those things. They are soulish comments. Sometimes princes in the kingdom can communicate from the soul. And if you are not discerning, you will be in Zion, but the quality of your life will be Babylonian. So you are supposed to be looking for a demand that you can respect. It is to tell you that there are things, there are streams outside the Holy Spirit that can give a man leadership. There is no future for people who live like that. May we not learn from you. I mean that I'm not saying may you not teach us. I mean that may your failures not be what others will learn from. There is a way you were designed to live as a son of God. You must be led by the Spirit of God. Please. Somebody is saying, I know somebody who was led to marry, and there's trouble now. You see, there's nothing that God cannot sort. Sometimes our humanity still tampers with the choices of God. And as we go on, we will talk about these things. That God said this is the one does not mean there will not be issues. Because the one who received from the Spirit must also walk it with the Spirit. But don't give your heart to strangeness. Spiritual wisdom, godly wisdom does not always issue out of the platform. Sometimes princes can bring up dark wisdom. So the first myth is that God does not choose for people, he chooses for people. If you want to write jam, God still chooses courses for people. Bolu, why are you in Ogbomoso? God told you to come. Because Bolu has graduated, Bolu has served, but Bolu has returned back to school. She should have worked and married and continued. and she will have children by now. But she heard the voice of Jesus and decided to come back. Are you with me? Good. So, be led. Be led. That's the first one. That's the first one. The second one, it will soon stop raining now. The second one is the myth that marriage isn't necessarily compulsory for the fulfillment of one's destiny. It's not compulsory to marry. I can still fulfill my destiny. How many of you have heard that before? It's your choice to marry. If the fact that you don't marry doesn't mean that you will not fulfill destiny. In case you believe it, can I have examples? Let's use the context of scriptures. Can I have examples? Paul, I like that. Who else? Jesus, perfect example. Now stay with me. If you were appointed to marry and you choose not to marry, you will not fulfill destiny. You can backtest this statement with scriptures. If you were appointed, it's not everybody that was appointed to marry. Whether Paul married and his wife left or he did not marry, Paul advised that if you are not married, you should be like him. He was like a spiritual eunuch. That's what Paul was. How many of us were here when that the psalm came? You are around. Okay, that the psalmist has gone to be with the Lord now. Jerry, stand. When that the psalm was bringing forth his teachings, did you understand? Were you around? You said, okay, you heard about him. I remember mommy was around for the first session. Mommy here was around. The second day, mommy raised her hand and said, okay, in the afternoon, mommy raised her hand and said, sir, everything you have been teaching is money. I don't understand. Because when that the psalm wants to teach the progressions of the Christian, it doesn't teach you pray. It doesn't teach you. He can use the colors of the rainbow. Yes. He can use the names of the sons of Jacob. He was a mystery man that the psalm will listen. Oh, and he was beyond his depth. Were you there? Okay, you just heard. Okay, you followed it. No, it was not just at the Fulgence. He was here. He ministered in this building. Oriyomi was here. He's a man of the presence. It was said of him that daddy could walk into a supermarket not because he's praying. The presence is just strong and people can be slain. No prayers. He was not appointed to marriage. I'm not sure how a woman will have survived around you. I'm not sure. It's like Jesus took his soul and sat with it. Based on my study of scripture, I believe that Paul was not appointed to marriage. And because he was not appointed to marriage, he had the capacity to, as an individual, fulfill his calling. Jesus was also not appointed to marriage. Before you say, I can, we will need to check in the writings of heaven if you are appointed to marriage. If you are a man appointed to marriage, to say it's not necessary to get married, I can still fulfill my destiny, is to say that the statement of the Lord God that it is not good for you to be alone is a lie. You don't know enough to say it's not necessary for you to marry. In your prophetic visions, you may not be able to accurately capture your next 40 years. And even if you think you don't need a woman now, that you're a self-made man, you know these self-made people. When you live long, you'll be convinced that the gap will show. So if God appoints a man or a woman to marriage, it is necessary that they marry to fulfill destiny. I know that some ladies might, because we have Christian feminists now, may God show us mercy. So we even have Christians, people who go to church, same people, who say, what me I just want is a child. I don't even want husband. See, you need to be checked. I will not tell you what department, but there's a faculty that you need to be admitted into, and they need to check what spirit is running your life. There's a very heavy viral load in your operating system that needs to be treated with an antivirus. Your mind was given to think the thoughts of God, not to think whatever you want to think. How can you say that you just want to give birth? You don't want a husband. Do babies fall from heaven? No, I hear church people say it too. So I just want a child, maybe one or two. All men has come. But it is necessary, if you are appointed to marry, that as a man, God establishes a help that is meet for you. As a woman, being a help that is meet for a man, God makes you locate the man. It is necessary. So these feminists claim that, there are people who are the head of financial institutions, they are head of telecom services, and they are not married. Well, we just said this evening that destiny is not a job. It's work. And so you need to show us how they have been able to contribute to the body of Christ effectively and fulfill their quota without that union. So it's not a choice if we are appointed to it. Okay, we have 3. Some people say that there is no concept like, the third myth is, there is nothing like a kingdom marriage. Marriage is just an earthly association. That's another utterance. There is nothing like a kingdom marriage. I am of this opinion, and I believe I have the Spirit of the Lord, that the fact that a particular institution, a particular entity, a particular posture of existence has been abused does not mean that there is no original. The counterfeit is actually proof that there is an original design in God. Now, what is kingdom marriage in 2022? Believe. Have you heard kingdom marriage before? Have you heard kingdom marriage before? So, what do young people call kingdom marriage? Because if you want to calculate kingdom marriage, my own marriage was not kingdom marriage. My wife was not too well known. She was not a minister. Okay, let my brother not feel offended. An example of a modern day kingdom marriage is my brother Lawrence Oyo and then his wife Darasimi. That's what we call kingdom marriage, where the two people coming together are icons and it's a false reality. What the enemy has done is to market a counterfeit so that, I'm not saying their marriage is not a kingdom marriage. It is a kingdom marriage. And if you look at the way they are living their life and the outworkings of that marital union, you know that it's a kingdom marriage. But kingdom marriage does not mean son of an icon, daughter of an icon, and then they married together and plenty pastors came. Because if it was by the pastors that came, our own marriage too will pass as kingdom marriage. Because if you have the Apostle Arome Osai, you have the Apostle Mike Orokpo. You say, if Mike Orokpo is the MC of your wedding, you are made. You have the Reverend Austin Okore. And we have that doctrinal pillar in Ibadan. Was Racine around? Yes, he was around now. He too danced inside. Yes. I'm not sure if Reverend John was around. I think he was. Reverend John was around too, from Lagos. In Ibadan, Pastor Tayadari was around. So and they were not sitting down. And what I just gave is the list of the people who danced after me for the engagement. It was me, then Apostle Arome. I think Pastor Fola was around. Yes, Pastor Fola Omotosho was around. Pastor Femi Lazarus was supposed to be around. He didn't get the location. Pastor Judah was around. JD was around. Is it not kingdom marriage? Who else was pastor that was around? We had quite a number of ministers that were around. Reverend Shina Begunde was around. Reverend Dr. Shina Begunde was around. So it was focused, it was kingdom marriage. But that's not what is a kingdom marriage. The marriage becomes a kingdom marriage because, you see, it was God that instituted the marital union, but it is now a human thing to marry. How many of you know on a side that prayer is not a Christian activity? Anybody who engages a spirit must pray. I hope you know that worship is not a Christian activity, because the spirit in the masquerade is stirred by worship. He has a worshiper. In Yoruba, it's called the atokun. The atokun knows the song to sing that will bring the spirit and match the spirit and the man. I hope you know that fasting is not a Christian thing. It's a spiritual thing. So, there is what we call kingdom fasting. Because kingdom fasting has to do with fasting within the context of the will of a certain monarch. Somebody say certain monarch. In this case, the monarch is God. So there are rules that differentiate between Christian fasting and other fasting. And I'm sure in other faiths, there are also rules for their own fasting. For example, in the other faith, they wake up in the morning, say certain prayers, then they eat, then they start the fast. We don't. Am I right? Now, there's Christian prayer, or what we call kingdom prayer. And kingdom prayer is not just let your kingdom advance. Give us this day our daily bread. Give me food to eat. It's inside kingdom prayer, because that's how your kingdom works. Forgive my trespasses is also part of kingdom prayer. Are you with me? Good. Just as there's kingdom, there's also what we call kingdom worship. In kingdom worship, we extol the excellencies of our King, and he responds by presence. He responds by interventions, by the miraculous. He responds by utterances. When the Shango worshiper worships Shango, it's Shango that answers him. So you have Shango worship, kingdom worship. There's also Shango marriage. They don't do it in a church. They stand before Shango. Their incantations, their marital rights are different. Every faith has a marriage pattern. And that marriage pattern is not only, sentenced to how the ceremony is conducted, how the man meets the woman. Like we said this evening, there are rules of engagement. When the man is supposed to know that he's ripe for marriage, it's also captured in the legal system that discusses marriage in the body of Christ. I hope you know that you don't need 100 people to do kingdom marriage. What you need is the church. That authority can be given to 2 or 3. Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, if the gathering is in his name and we are believers, we don't need a license as Christians to join people. But when that marriage is to be legalized, you need a license to administer the certificate of the government. Tolu, I can join you because I have a license. He came with my realities as a reverend. So I can join you and somebody. You don't even need to give me your honorarium. You don't need to cook. You don't need to bring water. We read the vows I pronounce you man and wife. And all of us will go home. We are the only ones that we know that marriage has happened. It's possible. But the entrance, the journey, the enactment, the consummation has kingdom laws. Laws given by God. That's why it's referred to as a kingdom marriage. So the concept of kingdom marriage exists. Now, to say that marriage is just an earthly association, the answer is also no. Because marriage is designed, or marriage was instituted because of an eternal work. So means the impact of marriage impacts on eternity. The kingdom that we have been called to advance in marriage is a kingdom that is not of this world. So it's important. It's not something you walk casually into. Are you getting me? So there is kingdom marriage. And every believer should marry as a kingdom marriage. Our unions are kingdom unions. Are you getting me? I think I have one more, and then we can go to sleep. Roti, right? Yes, he's like you want to go home. So let me quickly release us. I saw this comment somewhere, and the reason why I brought it up was because I saw people who I had seen write things about church. It was somebody, one leg in the kingdom, one leg outside the kingdom. I don't even know if the leg is still in the kingdom. The person made this statement, said, I'm not looking for a man, but I know there are women who say it too. I'm not looking for a man or a woman. I can always pay for one when I need one. Companionship is captured in the reality of marriage. This relationship in the kingdom that we're talking about is not what's the word now? It's not supposed to be one that it's not supposed to be expressed along the lines of using people. Using people. Why are you married to this person? I'm married though. I just want him to give me children. You know, it's not in every marriage that the husband will have more money than the wife. You don't believe it? Okay. When I was praying, God told me that my wife is a wealth gate. And that for a season, my takings in ministry is what will sustain the family. But a season of establishment will come when God will establish her. And that she will be the financial gate in the family. I used to use that gate too. Ask her. Sometimes I used to sow seed to her. If my wife tells God to give somebody money, God will likely give the person. Don't disturb her. But it's part of the things me have found out. And so what I do in the seed is, I need some money. I know that there's that grace inside. So talk to God. And I can boldly say God has always answered me. So when I don't have, I'll say, you have not been praying for me. That I should have. You ask God today. Okay, ask him now. I'm not afraid. My calling primarily is not to make money. So in my calling, I'm the God there, as assigned by God. But you see, in the money thing, it's not necessary that I be the one who has the more money. Know what God has called you to do. Don't be an African man. Are you with me? Don't be an African man. You are not African. You are from Zion. And your marriage is not African marriage. Your marriage is what? It's a kingdom marriage. Don't marry because you need people. Ha! His surname is Dangote. Let me marry him. So that everywhere we go, when they say, what's your surname, ma? Say, I'm Blessing Dangote. Say, which Dangote? You say, how many Dangote do you know? And then the person gets. There are also men, sir, who marry like that and change their surname to a compound name. I mean the man. Maybe his surname is Samuel. And he marries, who is the other rich person in the country? Okay, maybe Otedola. So his name will not be Otedola Samuel. Because he knows, you know Otedola, this is my father-in-law. That's not the purpose of God for marriage. That marriage cannot fully bring forth the excellencies of God. I'm closing now. When we come, I will go back to Genesis and we'll begin to study how marriage is supposed to advertise the image and the likeness of God. And if it's not advertising, it is not called a kingdom marriage. Oneself is smuggled into marriage. The purpose dies. Are you with me? The purpose dies. I was sharing with someone, with my son this afternoon, that how many of you are in Miriam's wedding? Okay. You know we have a baby from there now. Good. When I was speaking to the husband, I told the husband, husbands love your wives, wives submit to your husband. I've taught this lady about submission for about 7 years, so she should know submission. I said, but you, this is the first time I'm preaching to you. They say love is what? Giving. Love is sharing. In a Christian marriage, so that brothers know if you want to marry, anything you give that does not come, that is not given by sacrifice, is not love. So I know you are in a relationship with a sister now. You know, you give shawarma, you give alata, you give mama foeke. What else do they give in the most? You give Brent mall, you give you give Asun. That's what belief gives. He knows that one. What else do they give? Purple and vanilla. You see, everything that you give is called giving. If there is no element of sacrifice in it, it's not called love in this kingdom. That's why our giving is different from external giving. Because you can be suspecting this lady. It looks like there's another brother. And you quickly go to OK Pay and borrow money. You know, but we will talk about the financial aspect of these relationships, because some brothers are owing OK Pay, are owing B Pay and Blue Pay, because they are trying to fund a relationship that Jesus did not bring them into. Can I say this in Yoruba? Sorry, our English audience. Yoruba say yo dao. Yes. There are many liabilities because we are trying hard to fund what God is not involved in. So I will talk about that in my series 3. Tonight is just introduction. That's why I told the man, I said, a husband, you will only be an accurate husband if you are a sacrificial husband. You will want to buy shoe, you will leave money. Say, I'm not buying 30k shoe again. I want to buy 50k shoe. And then your wife will say, this gown. And you will not allow her to finish talking about the gown. You will use that same money for your shoe to buy. So I told that young man, I said, I used to eavesdrop my wife's discussion. Say, pizza. All I will say is I'm coming. I'll be back in about 1 hour, 10 minutes. And I'll bring pizza. Where did you get pizza? I just returned from Ilorin. Because I know that if there's no sacrifice, it's not called love. So I'm looking for opportunities of sacrifice. That's how I function. I need to pray, but I'm tired. That's when your prayers for her become sacrificial. Say, you sleep. Let me pray. Are you getting my point? You still want to marry? It's a tall order, because I told him 5 things. If you will be a good, accurate husband, you'll be a sacrificial husband, you'll be a sacrificial father, you'll be a sacrificial priest, you'll be a sacrificial teacher, and then you'll be a sacrificial lover or friend. 5 streams of sacrifice, basic. But everything you do that heaven will call love must come out of sacrifice. So the average husband needs to pray much so that his needs can be met. Because every need that his wife has is an opportunity to plug for sacrifice. So the average wife is supposed to be looking better than the husband. Because every time she comes in without shine, your satisfaction is, that's my money. Just like John, every time you stand, I know you lead worship, I know you do quite a lot of things, you are just hiding here. Every time you raise your hands, even if they snap you like a gangster worship leader, you know that last one now. And people are saying, guys, see this brother, Jesus blushes in heaven. That's my sacrifice. My final encouragement is that you return back to scriptures. I know you have read books. Some of them did not stem from the Spirit. So you must go back to the Bible and study. There are 17-year-olds who are writing how to have a good home. They have never been in one before. How to meet your life partner. I'm not saying you can't write at 17, but you will need to meet the one who gave the manual first. And if you don't have sufficient encounters with the Christ, you will not know marriage. I said in the house this afternoon, I started counseling people who were on the verge of divorce from the university as a student. Why they came was because I was in a pro-marriage relationship that everybody was proud of. It didn't end up in marriage, and it was Jesus that broke it. But there was nobody that sat across the table, no couple that came saying, we want to go separate ways. Who came because they stopped loving themselves? It means there's more to wanting to walk away outside loving each other. Can we be that group, and we're praying now, can we be that group that understands that our kind was not designed to live environmentally? We were designed with an accompanying manual. That we go back and check how Adam got his wife and how he companied with that wife. Adam was so sacrificial that when his wife fell, he fell with her. Kai! Because he knew that the wife could not be redeemed outside him. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Why are you so oblivious of what is going on in the life of your partner? Mary was just betrothed to Joseph. They were not married. But an angel in trafficking was assigned to that relationship. Gabriel will talk to this one, talk to that one. Because even as we journey, heaven stamps our relationships. I want this one to be a kingdom relationship. Somebody speak to God, just 2 minutes. Remember the foundations. If you have faltered in the foundations, can you ask the Lord to show mercy tonight? Maybe it's been about your pleasure and not his pleasure. Can we plead with him and say, Lord, show us mercy? Because the desire of God is that as a company, what we have in marriage is a replica, a mirror reality of that which exists between Christ and his church. He will help us step by step, and we will make it. On a final note tonight, if you know of any marriage in crisis, Can you ask that the Lord will look upon those homes in mercy and He will begin to bring succor to them? God has an expectation. God has a plan to see His expectation met. But the generation must come in alignment. And we say yes to Jesus. Ibarasia tabo mekababa kamande kaidatos. We withhold nothing, Jesus. You want a generation, we offer you one. Let the waitings come to an end.